Hey y'all, how y'all feeling? I figured let me come on and make a video, considering that everyone is, talking about the death of Elizabeth. And Indigenous people speaking about the colonization and the damage that it has caused to the Indigenous community. But what I don't hear is the colorism and racism that's within the Indigenous community. And I know, because I'm an Indigenous woman that has beautiful brown skin, but white presenting natives, white want to be natives, have a problem with my skin color and my curly hair. And not just me, but anybody that presents with a beautiful brown skin tone with that natural protectant for the sun, right? They have an issue with it. So I was just wondering, why isn't that a part of the discussion of what the Crown has done to Indigenous people? You know, we talk about everything else. We talk about the land theft. We talk about the genocide. We talk about everything else except for the caste and the class system based upon skin color. And those that are closer to the skin tone of the European colonizer is accepted, not questioned. They don't have racist insults hurled at them, such as your ancestors were slaves or you're a wannabe. You know, they don't deal with that at all. We deal with that. But that's never part of the talks when Indigenous people is speaking about all of the atrocities that was done to us. But that's a conversation that they don't have. And they don't have the conversation because they don't want to get rid of the racism, because they benefit from their privilege being close to whiteness. Even when the Indigenous community speaks about racism that whites has shown them, they don't take responsibility for the racism that they show within their own tribes and to other Indigenous people because they have dark skin or they have an admixture. Now, European admixture is always celebrated. It's not an issue. It's not a problem. It's understood. It's embraced. But if you have an admixture that results in the skin tone of the ancients, let me repeat, the skin tone of the ancients, because all ancient people had dark skin. Let me repeat, all ancient people had dark skin. So somehow retaining the skin color of the ancients is something that is frowned upon. It's something to make you feel like you're less than. You're not welcomed in these spaces. And let me get on the subject of being welcome into these spaces. We're not. We're not welcome in the spaces simply because of our skin tone. We're not welcomed in the spaces. Violent threats are hurled at us. It's kind of like we're visiting a KKK rally. Let's be real honest about it. There is no difference in the treatment that we receive from racist white people and racist natives. One and the same. There is absolutely no difference between the two, okay? So it's like we get it over here and we get it over there. There is no solidarity. There's no solidarity when there's racism. If you don't value me as a whole and as a human, there is absolutely no solidarity. Solidarity does not include you can come, but you can sit in the back of the class. You can come, but you can sit in the corner and you can't speak because you're not white presenting, that is not solidarity. And this racism is not just exclusive to North America. It's also seen in Central America and South America. Now, there are some extremely racist Central Americans, right? I just say Americans as a whole. There was a video that they were speaking about. There's this ancestry place called Somos, and they were helping people who have Central American ancestry find their tribal connections, right? A beautiful thing, right? Something to be celebrated, a beautiful thing to hook back in and make the connection to where the connection was broken due to colonization. So it's something that should be a beautiful thing. And I had made a comment and I had said, you know, via my some of my Mexican ancestors, they passed on to me my Mayan ancestry and my Zapotec ancestry, right? Here comes a racist wannabe Spaniard, because it's white presenting, trying to tell me who I am. As if I'm going to deny any of my ancestors because you have a problem with colorism, hair texturism, and racism. So they pretend to vomit all types of racist antics, talking about, oh, you're not this and you're not that. And, you know, there is a certain level of insanity that exists when you tell a stranger who they are. You don't even know this person. But simply because of their skin tone, they cannot be. Even, I might be all over the place on this video, but I'm sure y'all get it. Now, I'm sure y'all have heard, like, when, you know, Indigenous people talk about the non-representation of Indigenous people in media and so on and so forth, and about the old Westerns and how white people played natives and so on and so forth, right? This is the talk that they're saying. However, they fail to mention the representation of diversity within the Indigenous community. Because what? They like the structure of racism, as long as it doesn't affect them. But if they can, you know, promote lateral violence towards another Indigenous person because of their dark skin, they're all fine with it. Racism doesn't exist. What do you mean? That doesn't exist. We don't do that. There has been people that have been at powwows, you know, even tribal affiliated people that have had the N-word launched at them, as if, why are you here? What are you doing dancing in the circle? You know, it's all of that that white gatekeeping. And do not think for a second that the Indigenous community has somehow escaped being perpetrators of racism. They have not escaped it. They like to deny it the same way that white people deny that racism exists. The only time it exists is when it's being done to them. But it doesn't exist when they are being racist towards other Indigenous people who possess the skin tone of the ancients. Let it roll off of your tongue. The skin tone of the ancients. Now, I'll leave the comments on this video because I know one of these racists will be triggered. And I invite them to come into the comments and express yourself. Let us see how deep the psychosis of racism really is. Get it off your chest. Tell us all about how I am not who I am because of my skin tone. But when you say that, also tell them how you don't know me and how you also don't know my family. Now, I'm not the only one that's completely and utterly fed up with the ignorance within the Indigenous community, within the white gatekeeping within the Indigenous community. There is a host of us that do not see us represented within the indigenous community. We are constantly shunned, not accepted on any roles. Personally, I don't give a crap. I don't want to be associated with any federally recognized tribes, okay? None. Because I know the real story behind that. I do not want to be at all. But there are people who would love to be, you know, because they had a grandparent and so on and so forth on the roads, and they want to connect back in, but they are constantly rejected solely on the basis of their skin tone and hair texture. And if and when they are allowed to be on the rolls, it's only as a stepchild, always as the outsider, never really accepted. You have people right now that would love to attend powwows. It's my cat. But they are, princess, they are afraid of the looks, the stares, the whispers, the racist comments. So it prevents them from gathering amongst other indigenous people and truly representing themselves without feeling like they're an intruder in a space that they should be welcomed in. And we're not talking about the plastic smile, you're welcomed here, while still relegating us to the corner and to the back, into the you're not really indigenous, you're just got a little bit of indigenous. With that don't make no sense whatsoever. If you got one grandparent that is indigenous to any land mass, you are indigenous, because that grandparent had parents who had parents who had parents who had parents who had parents into affinity. There's no such thing as a little indigenous. That is a terminology and an ideology that was created for the purpose of genocide of indigenous people. And anyone who participates in it is being a colonizer and participating in genocide of indigenous people. So when you get to talking about colonizers and what they did to indigenous people, do not continue to leave out colorism and racism within the indigenous communities throughout the entire continent of America, to include the islands. Quit saying that everyone with dark skin is from Africa. There is a difference in someone having African ancestry from an ancestor a few generations ago or even recent generation, but it does not remove their indigenous ancestry to the land. Do I need to repeat it for the racists? Are the racists still confused about what I just said? So let me rewind. There's a difference in being from somewhere and someone who has ancestry from generations back or recent generations. It does not erase indigenous ancestry of the area. And if we really want to be real about it, a lot of people are not just indigenous to here, because those ancestors from around the globe were indigenous people as well to their area and their region. So if they do have African ancestry, okay, and indigenous American ancestry, they are still indigenous to Africa and to America. And if they happen to have ancestry from an Asian ancestor, because a lot of y'all like to deny that too. Y'all like to live in fantasy world that y'all don't have any Asian ancestry as well. It does not take away from the indigenous American ancestry. It adds to the ancestry. this one-mindedness about, oh, I'm only this and and nothing else is accepted but this and that. It's all white presenting. And none of them want to accept anything unless it's white presenting. If you're pale enough and your hair is straight enough, you can sit at the table. But if you're not, you gotta sit on the floor. So I'll close this by saying, it's my kitty. I'll close this by saying, stop leaving out the talks of colorism and racism while we're having a conversation about what the colonizers did. Because some of y'all are the juniors of colonizers, the students of colonizers. Some of y'all have become the new colonizers, wrapped in indigenous ancestry. Peace. To my brothers and sisters that retain the skin tone of the ancients, stay strong. And do not allow racists to keep you out of spaces that you rightfully belong. I want y'all to show up to them powwows, and I want y'all to hold your head high and show them how it's really done. Peace.